Devil. He was reeling. He swore he was losing all sensation in his legs and was about to topple over. And wouldn't that be the strangest sight, with a shaky smile and eyes starting to water. His breathing came out a little strangled and laughed as his grin grew. Is this real? This can't be real. It's too good to be real.
Should I be flattered or irritated that hearing my voice makes you reconsider reality? I'm real. I've been gone, but I'm here now, I promise. Holy shit. He repeatedly muttered while pacing around the roof. He chuckled. How did this happen? Don't ask me. This is the first time I'm conscious in what I'm guessing is a pretty long time. You should be telling me how I got back, not the other way around.
Alright, sorry. Geez, I forgot how loud you were. He cleaned out his ear before sitting down on the roof and closing his eyes. When he opened them again, he found himself in a mostly empty space that he hadn't been able to visit in a very long time. And as he looked around in surprise, he saw a gargantuan shadow fall over him. He turned around and saw the massive nine-tailed fox sitting over him. The massive fox's face stretched with a smile. Well, look at you. You actually look a little more mature. Has it really been so long that you can actually start looking and acting like a man while I've been gone?
Wow, real quick to prove me wrong. Kurama chuckled. You gonna cry for me? Shut the hell up. Naruto chuckled while wiping his arm over his eyes. He made sure not to shed a single tear as not to give the giant jerk any leeway. He smirked up at the fox. I'm gonna miss how peaceful it's been this last year and a half. That long? Seriously? Naruto nodded as Kurama looked down at him. Have I really been gone that long? The blonde pawn nodded sadly. Just what happened? Naruto's eyes lowered as he looked back and thought, you guys protect me from that huge explosion Madara caused. But when we were caught in the blast, something happened.
My control over my chakra was damaged, and my connection to you and the others was cut. After that the blast died, but I was just floating, in nothingness. Kurama tilted his head, but Naruto continued, anyway, I just found myself on the outskirts of a town. I limped there and passed out for a long time. And when I woke up you weren't there. No one was. And this wasn't our world anymore.
Not our world? Kurama repeated, sounding just as disbelieving and shocked as Naruto had when he found out the maps and histories didn't correlate at all with what he remembered. The giant fox laid down to face him directly. And how exactly did we end up in another world? I'm not sure. I was floating for a bit and then I saw these things moving around in the empty space, and then I was here.
For the life of me I still can't figure out what they were. Naruto groaned and rubbed his head. After that it was just a lot of nothing for a long time. I woke up several months later and I could barely use any chakra. The blast messed up my energy, and even using chakra caused pain to go through my whole body. I joined another school, got a job, bought an apartment, and, oh, I forgot to tell you, something crazy happened a few months back.
What? You wouldn't believe me if I just told you. I'll believe you. You really won't, after everything we've been through? I can trust whatever you're going to say.
I was killed, resurrected, and now I'm a member of a devil peerage in a world filled with devils, angels, fallen angels, gods, monsters, other assortment of creatures I believe, and even mermaids that look like a terrible result of a muscular dude fucking a fish.
You're pulling my tails. I'm not. Prove it. Naruto opened his eyes, extended his devil wings, flapped them a few times, before retracting them and returning to his mind.
Holy fucking hell, you're really a devil. Naruto did find some amusement in the reaction and expression Kurama showed after seeing the sudden wings sprout from his body. The fox palmed his head as if trying to comprehend what he was told. How did you become? Wait, you said you died.
Yes, I died. Kurama usually seemed so unflappable, or at least always acted like he still had some sway or power over a situation.
So to watch him react so animatedly, albeit to his death and subsequent resurrection, was entertaining to say the least. He drew a circle in his chest. I was trying to protect this kid from getting killed by a woman posing as his girlfriend. I protected him from the first attempt. Couldn't from the second. And she pierced through me when she got him in the back.
Didn't think that would catch you. You must have really gotten rusty. Kurama chuckled, but you look surprisingly good for a corpse.
Yeah, well, I got lucky. Kurama chuckled again at the fond smile that Naruto unconsciously let stretch his features. We were saved by a devil girl. Rias Grimori. Turns out devils have the power to resurrect others into their service. She did that for me and I became part of her peerage. After a while, that is. I was pretty reluctant about it at first. Hard time making friends. Doesn't sound like you. Did you forget how? Kurama meant it as a joke, and Naruto completely understood it. He tried to chuckle in tandem with the fox, but his face could barely pull a smile. Kurama noticed this, his playful tone and smile lowering before he asked, "How was it before that happened?"
Bad. It was bad. Naruto sighed and ran a hand through his hair. I mean, not like I was fighting or getting hurt or anything, but just bad.
You were gone, Sasuke was gone, I couldn't summon the toads or figure out how to get home, and I was just alone. I always thought about the war. What I could have done to make things better or stop everything from going out of control. How I could have saved Sasuke. How I could get you and the others back. But it just seemed hopeless. And I tried to keep together, but I was done. And things just got harder. So much harder. Did you think about? Never. I'd never waste what everyone fought to protect. Naruto denied, but I just sorta resigned myself, that this was it. And then Naruto showed a faint smile. She opened up a path for me to get back some of the things I lost. And they made things better.
Hey. Well, you certainly sound fond. Yeah, well, she's gone out of her way to help me. And the others are pretty great too. Asia acts so innocent and sweet sometimes that I actually start to feel like an older brother.
And Kaneko is so cool, I can't help but wanna get to know her. Kiba's had a hard time, but he's getting back in the right path. Akano, well, she's certainly something, I guess. And there's another guy called Issei. I just call him fuckface, but he actually does some cool things now and then. The blonde chuckled before shaking his head. I'm getting lost. Enough about me, what about you? Do you remember anything? Anything at all? We were covered from the blast, but it started breaking through. I tried to warn you that it wasn't gonna hold for much longer, but then it hit you fully and everything just went dark for me. Kurama said. After that, it was just weird for me. I wasn't dead or gone, but I still wasn't awake or conscious. Like in a dream state you couldn't wake up from, but you couldn't even remember what you were dreaming. It was dark and I couldn't reach you. I didn't know what was happening to me.
So what changed? I don't know. The giant fox gave a mighty shrug. But yesterday was the first time I felt different. It felt like a sudden surge of energy just started to go through me again. I felt like I could maybe wake up again. What is it? Hold on a sec. Naruto opened his eyes and came back out on the rooftop. With a deep breath, he crossed his fingers together as a clone popped into existence besides him. He waited with bated breath for the pain to surge through him again. But it never came. He and his clone shared a look of disbelief. They clambered up to their feet and he held out his hand as his clone went to work. His felt a familiar energy race to his hand without the mix of nature in it. A blue glow formed in his palm. He and his clone marveled at the Rasengan floating in his palm. Are you in pain? Nope. Did we just make a Rasengan? Yep. Do we have our chakra back? You know it? Yeah. Naruto went to high-five his clone but instead accidentally popped it with the Rasengan in his hand. He blinked in surprise before subtly wiping his hand against his school uniform. So anyway, what else do you remember? Well, I felt something change yesterday, but I was still in a daze. I couldn't wake up and I didn't know if I could reach you. But then you did something that helped me reconnect. What? I'm not sure. But your heartbeat increased. Your blood flowed faster, energy was swirling, and you just seemed more invigorated for whatever reason. It was thanks to that I was able to finally start waking up. Something that happened yesterday that made his heart race and got his blood flowing. Ooh. Naruto's eyes widened. Oh. What? Did you remember what it might be? Yep. He nodded, and you shouldn't worry about it. What was it? I want to know what woke me up. Trust me, Kurama, you really don't. It can't be that bad. Is it that bad?
Not really bad, but you will be mad if I told you. Kurama sounded displeased but surrendered anyway. Naruto was relieved to move away from the potentially awkward discussion before it could escalate. He continued to strike up conversation with his old companion, recounting the people he had met and the adventures he had while in this world. Kurama sounded skeptical at first, but after some convincing he started to believe his tale. After that, Naruto started testing out his chakra again. Testing the waters, nothing too grand just yet. He molded his chakra, stepped up on a wall and stuck to it longer than he had in a very long time. Summoned a team of clones as they started doing activities in order to see how long they lasted. And then bit his thumb in an attempt to summon.
It didn't work. Just a very small blood stain on the rooftop. Damn. I'm still really tired, but I think something is wrong. Kurama warned, I can't channel my chakra properly just yet.
Just give it some time. Naruto smiled and he opened and closed his hands a few times. Only now was he realizing just how much more energy he had in his system. Was this why he was feeling so antsy in the classroom earlier? Because his chakra was returning somehow. He had to figure this out. He had to know what changed. But until then, this is the best.
I was wondering what had possessed you to make a showing like that in class. Now I know it was so you can come up here to talk to yourself. Metaphorically and, oddly enough, literally.
Naruto and his clones looked over to see Akino standing in the doorway with her arms crossed beneath her breasts. They all shared a look, some of them noting their current positions of either striking poses from boredom or lying on the rooftop to take a nap. With a collective cough they all burst into smoke, leaving the original Naruto alone with the queen. A small pink hue came to his face. How long were you standing there?
Long enough to see 3 of the clones play each other in Rochambeau while another 2 whistled the theme song to Dragon Ball and the rest just started striking poses to see if they could balance on one foot.
And of course I couldn't miss the part where you were talking to yourself. She held up her phone and gave a stunning smile with a little giggle, but no worries, Naruto-san, I didn't take too much of it. Just enough to let Bucho know about your quirks and maybe give Issei-kun and Kaneko-chan a good laugh.
I might be a giant monster who doesn't really pick up on people's personalities very well, but she distinctively strikes me as. Naruto sighed as Kurama hummed, you see it too. Classes are about to end. Akeno smiled. Why don't you come back in before what little is left of your sanity slips off the long, treacherous slope that is the madness settling in your mind? Yep. Definitely one of those. Devil.
Oh, you're the troublemaker-kun that all the people were taking about after you dashed out of the class so quickly. Well, you don't look that mean. You actually look kinda confused, which is cute. The giddy voice greeted up at him, you make sure to treat Sotan kindly, okay?
Naruto stared down at the strange young girl that had greeted him in the hallway.
Akino and Tsubaki stood off to the side and watched while Sona was stood behind the shorter girl while rubbing her eyes tiredly. The blonde noticed some quick similarities between the Stuco president and this odd girl. Their eyes were the same color, their faces were identical, and they had the same shine of black hair. Even he could tell that they were sisters. And while Sona was obviously more mature and taller than her sibling, this girl seemed gifted in her outward growth.
They jiggled slightly even in her suit. Naruto looked up towards the exasperated student council president. Kaichu. I didn't know your little sister was coming to visit you today. That's really sweet.
Sona sounded haggard as she let out a sigh that lasted several seconds. She fixed her glasses up her face before motioning towards him. Oni-sama, this is Naruto Uzumaki-kun. He recently became part of Rias Club. Uzumaki-kun, this is my older sister, Seraphal Leviathan. She's in a similar seat of power as Sirzex-sama.
Wasn't that spot one of the highest power and authority for all devils? So that meant that this girl was actually just like Sirzex. Nice to meet you, Naru-chan. But I must warn you, she wagged her finger in his face. You can't have Sotan, her young, lithe body is for her Oni-chan and her Oni-chan only. Okay. Only I am allowed to love Sotan.
Yep, just like Sirzex. They were both idiots. But that doesn't mean you can't still be friends with her. Seraphal beamed with joy. I love how many friends Sotan has. There's Ria-tan, and Akino-chan, and Tsubaki-chan, and Saji-chan, and now Naru-chan too. She looked up between her little sister and the whiskered blonde. Make sure to be good friends, okay?
Yes, Oni-sama, Sona drearily answered. I'll make sure to be good friends with Uzumaki-kun. No, that's too formal for friends, Seraphal whined. Sotan, you have to address him with a little more cheer. Naru-chan, you too.
Naruto and Sona were left in silence after the powerful devil's unreasonable demand. Naruto was about to intervene before he noticed Sona's shaky form. He looked and paled at the mixture of blush and green on her face as the Citri heiress eyes started to swirl. Sona forced out, please take care of me, and Naru-chan. Naruto turned back to Akino and Tsubaki for advice, but they were merely watching with amusement. He turned back around and saw Serafal staring up at him expectantly while Sona resigned herself to this torment. He gulped before forcing a smile on his face. Yeah, you too-s. So Tan.
Yay! Friends! Serafal cheered before making her way down the hall and waving back, come in, So Tan. Let's go get something to eat, I'm starving. There was an uncomfortable silence between the Uzumaki and the sea tree. Sona fixed her glasses and quickly turned around. We'll forget this ever happened, Uzumaki-kun. Agreed? Agreed. Sona quickly made herself scarce as he turned around and glared at the two unrepentant queens. I don't know why I look to you two for help at all. You're useless. I can't help it. Akeno-kun, I just enjoy myself too much when I see you in terrible situations like that.
I'm not sure how I could have even helped. Tsubaki at least sounded sincere about her apology. Leviathan-sama is rather, well, everyone has their own ways of handling her. Ah, that sounds difficult. He sighed and looked back in time to see Ria slowly stalk forward. She looked almost downcast, her eyes refusing to raise from the ground as she dragged her feet. He had never seen her look so defeated before. He spoke up, Rias, what's up? She didn't respond. He didn't think she even heard him before she walked straight into him and rested her face in his chest. He looked down at her strangely, avoiding a strand of her hair from pushing into his mouth before he heard the crimson-haired woman groan tiredly and lean into him. Some people stopped and gawked at the scene, but he just looked back at the queens, in hopes that they'd actually help. Lucifer-sama and Gremory-sama were very interested in getting her attention during class. She's quite tired. I'll spell this one out for you. Akeno smiled and motioned her hand, pat her head and console her. He looked down at Rias to see she still hadn't removed herself from his chest. He sighed but relented to the task she so obviously was relegating to him. He gently laid his hand on her hair and patted her head. There, you survived. Good job. Naruto felt her hum reverberate in his chest, but she still didn't step back. Soon enough he felt Akino and Tsubaki walk off to leave them alone. And there were a few dozen students looking at the scene in frustrated envy and confusion. He had to ask how this happened as he continued to pat her head. Devil. And I got this one from Motohama that said, dude, ya hear about what happened on the third year's floor? Gremory-sama being embraced by that Uzumaki fella. You believe it? Is this real? Issei stifled his chuckle. There are a ton of pictures too. Anya Kiryu told me about this while people were talking about it in the halls. Zenobia added in her piece to the conversation. She said this was two lovers in the heat of their passion just barely able to contain themselves even in the sight of others. The blue-haired girl nodded with some intrigue to her voice. Quite a sight indeed. Everyone came up to me and asked if Naruto-san was dating Bucho-san or if he was just doing something to get her attention. Asia said nervously and shivered from the memory of so many boys and girls trying to talk to her at once. They still think I'm his younger sister, so they asked me any question about you too. It's really hard to handle that crowd. My apologies, Asia-san. Yuto gave his condolences to the shorter girl. I didn't think things would escalate so much after what I said a few months back. Things certainly did escalate, didn't they? Akeno giggled at Ria's expression. It looks like you were indulging for just a little too long, don't you think, bucko? Kaneko didn't comment or speak up or do anything. She simply stood there, silent. A barely noticeable downward curve in her stoic expression, but whatever, it was just stupid. Stupid senpai. We're moving past this. Rias coughed, getting all of them to focus back on the task at hand before she turned around to face the other member of the controversy. If you want, maybe you can speak up and try to stop this from spiraling out any further. She waited for his snarky response but watched him hide his face. Naruto. Did it really have to go on for 10 minutes? We were just standing there as I patted your head. Why didn't you just step back? Do you have any idea what it was like having my brother and father sitting in the back of my class, trying to get my attention and videotaping me while I'm taking notes? Tapes that I know are going to end up in an enormous, honestly uncomfortable collection of my life that I'm not sure how they get half the time. So I'm sorry, but I just wanted some relief before I lost my mind. Naruto's eyes were wide after she had finished her rant. The crimson-haired girl's chest was heaving and her face was a little red from the rush of blood. It was only after a moment to breathe did the usually collected king realize she had lost her cool, and looked around at all the surprised looks towards her. Her face lit up, mortified as she turned back to the heavily sealed door and coughed. Yes, well, back to business. We're here for my other bishop.
You want a minute to catch your breath, Gasper? We're coming in.
Rias released the locks covering the door and blew it open. With the doors out of the way, the rest of the orc had a chance to see the lavish, wonderful interior of the room. For the newer members of the orc, they hadn't expected to see such a magnificent bedroom in the middle of the drab, bleak old school building.
But they also took notice of the fact that there was no visible sign of anyone having used it at all. Bucko? Issei looked around in confusion as they slowly stepped into the room. The perverted brunette titled his head in confusion. Were we looking for someone? 'Cause I don't think anyone lives here.
Rias sighed. Gasper just prefers the other places all. She walked around the bed and headed for the corner of the room where a box was stuffed in the corner. The new members thought it was odd for their king to sit silently in front of the box, but they were even more confused when they heard a nervous whimper emanate from the box. Rias tapped the box. Gasper. It's been quite a while since I last saw you. Don't you want to see everyone?
No, the box cried out pitifully, earning several shocked looks from the new members as they watched the box quiver and shake. I won't go outside. I can't. Why did you open the door?
Because it was time to come see you. Rias clarified, sounding caring with all the patience of a mother dealing with her child. She just gently laid her hand on the box. You remember those new peerage members Kaneko has been telling you about? I brought them with me. And I want to introduce you to them. Would that be okay?
The meek voice sounded conflicted by her request. I don't know. I still don't want to come out. I understand. She looked back at them and smiled sweetly. You still love being in your box, don't you? She heard a hum within the box. Well, did you know wearing boxes has actually become the hottest new fashion trend in the underworld? Really? That's right. It's all the rage. You're basically a trendsetter. I knew it was only a matter of time before the world recognized just how amazing boxes are. I am sorry. Naruto raised his hand. What the fuck is going on? I'm completely lost. He looked around at the expressions on Issei, Asia, and Xenovia's faces, and I'm not the only one wondering why Rias is talking to a box. In fact, people love boxes so much that they're interested in seeing the inside of yours. The box gasped and shivered. What? That's right. There is a whole group of people coming here to ask you questions and interview you. No, yep. And they're going to be here in 3, 2, 1. Eeyaw. The box burst open and a small body popped out, quickly diving into Rias' embrace and hiding himself in her chest desperately. The shorter body was shaking like a leaf. Don't let them come in here, bucko. I am scared. I know. Rias lovingly embraced the terrified child in return and lovingly rubbed his head. And I'm sorry, Gasper, but I lied. That was just a little fib to get you out of the box.
B. Bucho. Rias just smiled before standing up and turning to face her peerage. She felt the terrified bishop hide behind her back and barely peek out from behind her. Everyone, I want to introduce you to my bishop. This is Gasper Vladi, a first year alongside Kaneko. And he's also half vampire. Please watch over him carefully.
Vampire? Wait. Him? That cute young girl hiding in your back is a boy? Issei gawked as Rias nodded. But he's wearing a girl's uniform. The suit is too stuffy. Gasper answered, mostly just speaking into Rias' back as he was still too nervous to face the new people directly. The young boy was Kaneko's age and standing only a few inches higher than the petite girl. His features were very soft, with pale blonde hair in a short bob cut and piercing purple eyes. He didn't stand confidently, his legs buckled together as he tried to hide as effectively as possible behind Rias. With his lack of muscular frame and the female uniform he was wearing, the young lad could easily be mistaken for a lady. The skirt is a lot more airy. Oh, that's cute. Oh, those are very, very bad thoughts. Issei started massaging his temples and turning away with a grimace, must rid self of thoughts. Issei-san. Please just breathe. So this little guy is your other bishop? Like Asia. Rias nodded to his question as Naruto stepped up. He looked down and heard Gasper squeak before slipping behind Rias' back again.
The whiskered boy decided not to press the distressed cross-dresser and instead looked to his king. So why was he being kept in here, behind a ton of seals and locks?
We weren't punishing him or keeping him locked up because we were scared, if that's what you're thinking. Naruto blinked before looking aside guiltily. Rias touched his arm, getting his attention back on her as she gave him an understanding smile. For one thing, Gasper is afraid of most people and being outside, so he enjoys staying alone. But the reason he's been in here for so long is because he's too strong for me. Gasper has an incredible power, one that I couldn't help him control at the time I was recruiting him. So to make sure that power didn't do any harm and give me enough time to get stronger to handle his gifts, he stayed in here. AA and I don't mind staying a little longer, like a lot longer, Gasper added. Please let me stay. Yuto shook his head. Seems like Gasper-kun hasn't changed one bit. Now Gasper, why don't you come out of the room with me? No. In an instant Gasper had disappeared from Rias' back. Everyone looked surprised by the sudden chance before they noticed the box shaking and muttering stuff about never going outside. Rias bucko, Xenovia stepped forward. How did he do that?
It's his sacred gear. Gasper is half vampire, half human. A Dhampir. He has extraordinary vampiric abilities, and blessed with an exceptionally powerful sacred gear that allows him to freeze time for anything he sees. With those abilities, his power would be exceptionally looked for by just about anyone. Rias giggled, if only he wasn't so frightened.
Bucko, do you mind if I try and talk with him? Of course. Rias allowed Kaneko the opportunity to step up and try her hand at helping her friend. Rias stepped back to stand alongside the others watching the young rook's attempt. Kaneko knelt down by the box. Gia-kun, it's me. K. Kaneko-chan? Yep. I came to visit again. I was worried. Kaneko spoke quietly to the box. Are you okay? Have you been eating well? I am not hungry. But I'm not sure if I've been eating well. You need to come outside. Bucko wants you to, and something very important is coming up soon. So we need you. Gasper gave a pathetic whimper at the idea of being thrown out into the world like that. Gia-kun, would you like my help? The little devil in the box didn't respond immediately. For a full minute there was a silence between the two freshmen that permeated the whole room. Until finally they heard a slight trembling whisper echo from within the box. Why yes please.
Okay. Kaneko immediately picked up the box and turned around to throw it. The older members of the orc stepped aside to avoid the path of the flying box as it went sailing out of the room. They heard the terrified shriek coming from within before the box bounced and barreled between the walls of the hallway. The box finally came to a stop, opening up and letting Gasper flop to the ground in a heap. They all looked back towards the rook to see the little devil giving them a thumbs up. Kaneko, that wasn't the way I thought you would help. And don't encourage her. Rias slapped Naruto's thumbs up as he pulled his hand back to rub the sting. She sighed before looking at her peerage. Everyone, as you can see, Gasper still has quite a ways to go to get the confidence necessary to fight alongside us. So until the meeting of the three factions, I'd like all of you to help him build some confidence. Can you do that? You got it, Bucko. We'll do our best. Never worked with a vampire that wasn't a job for me to try and exterminate them. This will be intriguing. Let me get this straight. Naruto turned to the redhead. You want to leave that kid's social rehabilitation in the hands of us. He pointed out to the pervert, the shy nun, the clueless warrior, the sadistic queen, the smiling pretty boy, the teasing stoic, and the skeptical ninja, seriously. I trust you all to do your best, and I don't have many options. Ooh, Gasper moaned from down the hall. Devil. And this is where I live now. It's much smaller than the old building you last saw, but it's comfier. More quaint. I like it quite a lot. There isn't so much empty space and I don't have to travel across what feels like a soccer field in order to grab my clothes, and I don't have someone waiting on me hand and foot. Instead I get to wake up in the morning, make myself breakfast, and enjoy getting ready for school. In fact, sometimes I get up just to wake up with Naruto. Rias, he's not listening. The redhead sighed and turned back around with a peeved expression on her face. Of course he is. He might be hiding in the box, but Gasper is a very good listener. Isn't that right, Gasper? That's right, Bucko. So don't go underestimating me just yet. You Uzumaki-senpai. Yeah, that'll carry more weight when I'm not the one that has to carry you all over town.
He got a lot of weird looks on the way back home when the gorgeous redhead by his side was holding a conversation with the box he carried on his shoulder. Even more concerned glances when the box started gleefully talking back. He swore he heard a few whispers about them being a deranged couple that kept their young daughter locked in a box. They couldn't sprint away from those places fast enough.
They were going to rehabilitate Gasper to the best of their ability. That meant starting to weed him out of his familiar, comfortable environment so he could get used to other places. Of course they couldn't make him go cold turkey, so they eased him in, Rias suggesting he come stay with her at her new home and let him get to know Naruto.
Naruto raised a point against it, but he was soundly outvoted and had to carry the Dampier home.
Rias fiddled with the key to his apartment and let the door swing open. She stepped in and dropped her bag before sliding open the closet door and smiling back at the blonde and the box. "I'm going to get dinner started, okay? Now I hope you two can have some nice conversation while you wait. I'll be back."
She sounded so pleased with dumping this task on him.
Naruto sighed and stepped in before kicking the door closed, dropping his bag on one side and placing the Gasper box on the table. He dropped down as well and stared at the box expectantly while the sounds of Rias humming and cooking in her room echoed into his. Things were completely silent between them.
Gasper spoke up first with a meek tone. "See, can you please not stare so much? I am getting nervous." "I'm not staring at you. I'm staring at the box." Naruto corrected. "If you want you could come out of the box and we could talk then." "I am good. Then I'm gonna keep staring at the box." Gasper relented with a sad whine as Naruto sat up and crossed his arms. "Why did you choose a box anyway?" "Oh, that's because boxes are small and comfortable and I don't have to be surrounded by a crowd when I'm in them." Gasper whispered. "It's just more peaceful."
"Okay, but why be in a box in the first place? Are you that uncomfortable around people?" As the silence carried on and it was clear Gasper wasn't going to answer, Naruto started to put the pieces together and nodded. "You stay in it because you want to avoid them, don't you?" "And not everyone." Gasper was quick to clarify with a jump of his box. It settled at the young boy's voice whispered out, "I love everyone I know. Bucho took me in when I needed it most and Kaneko-chan always plays and checks up on me. Akano-senpai and Yudo-senpai always treat me like family. And I have a few others too. Just, everyone else doesn't like when I'm around."
Kinda sounds like you when you were younger. And Shukaku's kid while he was growing up.
Naruto tried not to focus on the comparison Kurama pointed out, but it was just too obvious not to agree. Even in this world, it was becoming painfully clear that the same separation that burdened him for so much of his life was still present even in this place. He sighed before leaning on one hand and staring at the box. "Do you not like what Rias is asking us to do? For you to get more comfortable outside again?"
"I know why she's asking me to do it. It's just I'm scared. It's scary and uncomfortable for me to do this."
"I bet." Naruto nodded. "Gasper, I understand why you're afraid, and if you don't like being around people so much, I can understand that too. But Rias is here with you now. And you're not scared of her, right?" "No. No, of course not. And you said the same thing for Kiba and Kaneko and Akano, who you know is usually someone to be scared around." Gasper giggled. "Plus there are more people that joined your side now too. Me, Asia, Zenobia, and Issei. We're a part of this now too. And if you'll give us the chance, I bet you'll see we will like having you around too."
Naruto reached out and pulled the top of the box open by the slightest inch. Gasper yelped, but Naruto stopped from pulling it completely open before just holding out his hand. "We don't want to force you to do anything. But we'd be happy to help you out if you want." A tiny hand slowly emerged from the top of the box and reached for Naruto's. The whiskered man chuckled and took the hand softly. Gasper let out a small whine before gulping and sitting up completely. The nervous vampire sat in his box, looking down at where he was holding hands with Naruto before shaking it. My name is Gasper Vladdy, it's nice to meet you." Naruto Uzumaki. "Nice to meet you too." He lifted the box up and dropped it to his side and let Gasper sit beside him. He smiled down at the little vampire. "What's wrong?"
I'm just surprised." Gasper admitted. "When I came to the school with Kaneko-chan, I had heard rumors about someone that went to our school named Uzumaki. There were a bunch of scary stories revolving around you, Like how you secretly had ties to the mafia overseas, or how you were violent and started fights whenever you got mad, or how you walked into this town for the first time covered in blood and injuries.
What the hell did you do while I was gone? To be fair, the blood thing was real, but it was only a little and I was hurt. And I only got into fights with people that started them with me.
Sorry. Gasper flinched, before hanging his head. What I mean is that there was a lot I found scary about you when I heard the stories. But then Kaneko-chan came one day to visit me and told me you were going to be a part of the peerage. And then when she came again and told me you weren't nearly as scary as the stories said. You were nice, and kind, and caring, and strong, and cool. Kaneko had said all of that about him. And the more she said, the more I realized that the scary image I had of you wasn't true at all. I had just kinda made a decision about you based off only what I had heard and what other people had acted like. Which is awful. Gasper's eyes lowered again as he sadly muttered, I was doing the exact same thing I hated. Gasper squeaked when Naruto patted him on the back. He looked up to see Naruto's smile as the older blonde chuckled, you don't need to beat yourself up so much. We hadn't even met yet. What's important is how we act from this point on. And no worries about that either, because we're friends now. Agreed.
Gasper looked like he was going to cry, which contradicted the hopeful smile that threatened to split his face. He forced back any tears from falling out and nodded in agreement. Absolutely, thank you, Naruto-senpai. Well, don't you two look thick as thieves.
You know, I can always just open the front door. Naruto noted with a smile as Rias carefully walked back through the closet with several plates of curry in her arms. He stood up to take two. You don't have to snake your way through there every time, you know. We could even go to your room instead.
It's no bother, plus I like your room so much. Rias said with a casual smile before sliding a plate in front of a beaming Gasper. Here you go, Gasper. I know you don't like it too spicy. Yay. Thank you, bucko. Gasper happily replied before digging into his dish, still sitting in his box like he didn't mind at all.
Rias laughed before scooting over to sit by Gasper's side and strike up a conversation with her bishop. It had probably been a while since she had last gotten the chance to converse with him, so she was covering a lot of topics. Any new shows he had watched. How proud she was of him for all his work over the web. She even made him blush bashfully when she said how happy she was to see them getting along so quickly.
She made it look so easy. She truly did see each of them as a loving member of her family. How he ever doubted her sincerity about that, he'd kick himself for it. But she looked like such a caring person, like a mother happy to sit with her child. And what position do you play in that fantasy, one wonder?
Naruto shook his head and ignored Kurama's jab as he quickly started eating his curry. He gobbled it down but made sure to keep an ear open to what Gasper and Rias said. Yes, and Kaneko-chan told me all about the things that happened over the last few weeks. How we got new members to the peerage, and how you fought the fallen angel, and how you had a rating game too. Gasper. The young bishop had come to a stop in his joyful conversation with Rias before looking up at her guiltily. I'm sorry, Bucho. That was such an important event and you needed everyone by your side. And not like I could have helped much anyway, but. Stop it. Rias cut him off by enveloping him in a hug, holding his head to her chest. I know how scared you would have been in a situation like that. And we're all safe now. So I don't want to hear any more of this self-deprecating talk, okay? There's nothing to forgive. They stayed connected for a moment before Gasper gave a confirming nod and separated. The vampire wiped his eye before he smiled. I did see footage of your fight after it was done. Kaneko-chan told me how brave you were in that fight, senpai. And it was so cool that you went that far for your love to Bucho like, senpai. What's wrong? See, can you breathe?
Naruto was slapping his chest and choking on his food as his face went blue. He felt a hard slap on his back and finally spat up the curry that clogged his airway. He gasped for air and felt the panic slowly leave his system. Naruto, are you alright? He looked up at Rias. The concern across her face for his well-being. The smile she showed once she knew he was okay. And the hearty laugh when she saw the confused look on his face. Gasper, can we have a moment? Huh? The vampire looked up in confusion. But my curry? Take it with you. The pawn handed Gasper his curry, shut him in the box, and lifted it up before throwing it through the hole into Rias' room. He closed the door on Gasper's shocked yell before walking back around and sitting down in front of Rias. The beautiful redhead blinked in confusion. What is it? You're acting rather peculiar. Rias. He looked directly at her before steeling himself. What's happening between us? Her seafoam eyes blinked in confusion. I mean, what's going on?
This started with you and I talking a lot after we beat that fallen angel lady. Then the night before that Phoenix guy showed up, you came to my apartment and tried to, well, you know. Then after we finished fighting him, you kissed me. Then you made me lunch, moved here, you get in my bed sometimes, and the other night he paused and felt his cheeks heat up as Rias did the same with that fresh memory in their heads, plus we kissed so many times.
Right. Rias pushed down her embarrassed stutter and spent a moment fixing her hair before nodding. Well, I suppose it does seem quite confusing if all those things happen without any context. It's just that seems like the kind of stuff a couple who are dating would do. And we're not dating, we're not, right? No, we're not. Rias agreed, lowering her eyes sadly with a small hitch in her voice. I suppose it's my fault for acting like that. So will you go out with me? It took a moment for those words to process through Rias' mind. When they did, her eyes slowly started to widen before she looked up at him. Naruto's cheeks were burning red and he couldn't even look her in the eye. He was rubbing his neck and speaking to the side. I mean, if you don't want to, that's fine.
It's just if we're going to be around each other so much and do those things together, then I want to make sure it's clear between the both of us. His cheeks were bright red, but he faced Rias directly. I can't really say I'm in love just yet, but I like you, Rias. I really like you. I think you're kind and strong and amazing, and you can be surprisingly goofy and cute sometimes. So if you want, can we go out together?
Naruto was worried he had been too sudden or had said something wrong to turn her away.
But after a moment Rias started to giggle before it became a full-blown laugh. She doubled over and held her sides before wiping away a tear. You wanted to bring up all the things we've done just so you could ask me to be your girlfriend yourself. Well, that's surprisingly traditional, and romantic too. He blushed and scowled at her teasing tone before she gave a big smile. Yes, I would love to be your girlfriend, Naruto. And I'm glad you asked.
I just wanted to clear it all up. He answered with a frown as she chuckled. With all the teasing and stupid rumors flying around, I'd rather face them knowing it's official.
This is so backwards. Rias couldn't stop the laugh from shaking her body. Usually we would be asking each other out long before we did the stuff we've done already. Basically living together, making meals, not to mention what almost happened the other night. What almost happened the other night? Because from what I'm gleaning off context clues, you two almost, wait. Other night, no. Naruto, do not tell me I was finally jolted awake by the fact you were trying to have sex with this girl. ... Answer me. Naruto ignored Kurama's screaming and instead slid up to Rias' side. The lovely redhead looked up at him as he smiled and cupped her face. He brought her in closer as their lips touched and warmth spread through their bodies. He savored the taste of cherry on her lips, and the flavor of curry as well from what they had just eaten. They separated and laughed for a moment before re-engaging their kiss, Rias' arms wrapping around his neck while his hands settled around her back. What's wrong? Rias asked when she noticed Naruto was distracted. Is something the matter? Sorry, nothing's wrong. This is perfect, just. He started smacking his head. We've got an unwanted visitor ruining the moment. Oh damn, I forgot about Gasper. Rias paled as she realized she was about to start a very heavy kissing session with Naruto that could have developed into something a little more heated with Gasper sitting right next door. That was mortifying. And maybe just a little bit exciting. No, not Gasper. He sighed and rubbed his head. It's Kurama. He's throwing a hissy fit because he can't handle the way he was revived. Yes, it is a hissy fit. And if it's not that, then you're just bitching. Rias looked at her new boyfriend oddly as he had an argument with himself. If she were anyone else, she'd be worried that she had fallen in love and was now dating a possible schizophrenic. But she believed the story he told her about his old life, and she was especially interested by the idea that he had another life connected to him like that. Kurama. The fox from your stories. I thought you said he was gone. He was, but he came back, along with my chakra. I've been trying to think how that could have happened, but I just draw a blank. Looks like she had some big news to tell Kaneko tomorrow morning. Wait, so can he hear us right now? Naruto nodded. Can I say hello? Greetings Kurama, my name is Rias Grimori. While you've been gone I've been trying to take care and watch out for Naruto in your stead. I've heard a lot about you.
What are you doing? Kurama lives inside you, right? Then he's close to you. Which means that I should be ready to introduce myself to him properly now that we are going out. She added with a smirk and giggle that got an instant reaction out of him. What does he say? He's oddly flattered by your greeting. No one has ever introduced themselves to him before, and definitely not through talking to me. He raised an eyebrow. You're a weird one, aren't you? You're one to talk. But then again I guess that makes us going out all the more perfect. She leaned in and stole a kiss before he could rebuke her. He touched his lips in surprise as she stood up and winked. I'll go get Gasper. She walked over to the closet and slid it open to find a dirty dish off to the side with Gasper focusing more intently on his phone. He slowly looked up at her and gulped. I swear I wasn't sending a message to Kaneko-chan about you two officially going out now. Peeved, she chuckled. It's fine Gasper. I'm sure it would have gotten passed around eventually. That's good, because I actually told everyone in the club. Gasper. I am sorry senpai. I didn't mean to hear everything you said, I just did.
While Naruto threw threats at the quivering, terrified vampire, Rias laughed. Before she had started her senior year she had never felt interested romantically in any boys. She had just assumed it was never going to be a path she took. Now she knew the truth. She just hadn't met the goofball that would steal her heart yet. Devil Valley crossed his legs and looked out over the land from the top of the building. It stretched out for so far, and there were so many lights that shined through the night. But he knew he didn't even need to bother using one hand to count the number of people in it that could truly give him a challenging battle. Since he was a child, all he had been looking for were fights that would push him to his absolute limits. So he could know what they are, and then break them just as quickly. That's what he wanted when Tobio finally started to show some promise with his sacred gear. He just never got the chance to fulfill that wish and fight Slashdog himself. That was something that was bugging him about this whole peace treaty Azazel was proposing. He had made a list of people he wanted to fight in the future. Exceptional beings and fighters from all over the world that proved with their power or skill that they could truly challenge his might. He had been looking forward to facing those people one at a time. But now it seemed Azazel's peace agenda threatened that list. When the factions reached an agreement, then Azazel would soon reach out to other mythologies and attempt to broker peace with them as well. And considering how charismatic and charming Azazel played himself out to be, it was only a matter of time before peace became the norm. For a fighter like him, peace was poison. The strongest people in the worlds would become addled and soft. He was already cursed with a rival that had no fighting instinct and little potential for growth. Now everyone he had set his eyes on was going to be experiencing the same decline. It was annoying. Oh well. It wasn't like it was going to be a problem for him much longer anyway. Valley smirked before his clock went off and he reached back for his cup. He pulled the lid open and started to indulge himself in the deliciousness of the ramen and broth. Albion. Valley. I am here. The silver-haired man looked back at the sudden appearance of his companion as they slowly stepped up to his side. They looked out over the skyline and let the wind send their hair billowing back if only to take it with the same stoic expression as usual. Valley slurped up some noodles. I'm surprised to see you out and around. Considering what's about to go down I'd have expected you to hide yourself as much as possible. With the attention they were going to get soon it was better for them to be in hiding when all the world started focusing on them. Not like anyone will actually be able to hurt them but it was still a precaution. I had nothing else to do. Boredom is very hard to concentrate through. Valley scoffed, that's a bit hypocritical, seeing as your aim for silence in the dimensional gap is the whole reason for this plan. Different in dimensional gap. That place is home, and silence is peaceful, here it is wasteful. We can agree on that. Valley nodded and strung up some noodles in his chopsticks, that's why I'm at least eating something I love right now. So not to feel so bored. Noodles. Valley seems to eat them almost every day. Do they perhaps have a hold on dragons? Might they be the secret to defeating Great Red that I have been searching for? Valley wanted to argue, but the being in the small girl's body had already knelt down by his side and was examining the cup ramen intently. He sighed and allowed them to inspect the meal for a moment while he waited. He had no idea how the most powerful being in existence was such an empty-headed weirdo, but he was the one who made friends with it, so what did that say about him? He finally started eating again once he had free space. So has anything new happened since I last saw you?
Unknown creatures have finally started to show response. That got Valley to stop eating as he looked at the being at his side in surprise. Are you serious? What happened? Not sure. I was told that they have finally started showing movement and responses to stimuli around them. No thought, merely action.
The beings Ophis had brought to their attention were things unlike anything Valley had seen before. He had only caught a glimpse of them before they were taken away to be analyzed. They were massive and powerful, but they were empty and mindless and unresponsive. The idea that they were finally making some kind of movement.
It was certainly intriguing. Ophis reached up to the accessory around its neck and looked down at it quietly. With those creatures, Great Red may finally be defeated. And I can have my home.
Valley wasn't sure where Ophis found that ragged old thing or why the dragon god wore it, but he knew Ophis didn't feel like being separated from it. It was the catalyst that found those monsters and helped the dragon god make the decision to start fighting the greatest power in existence. The metal on it might have been rusty and obviously warped by some damage, but the black material did go well with the gothic tone of their dress.
Valley still wasn't sure why there was some weird kind of swirly snail in the middle of the headband, but he wasn't arguing. He smiled before slurping up some more noodles. It was almost time for chaos to reign.
Omake. Culture shock. Karaoke. Naruto had been invited out with the others to try and help Gasper get used to areas outside of the school. Rias and Akino were busy helping Searsex prepare for the meeting, so he was the senior member watching out for the others.
He thought he could handle whatever they went out to do. He was pretty startled as he held the microphone in front of his juniors as music played behind him. So what am I doing? Sing to the lyrics as they start getting colored. Issei called out over the cheers from the other members of the club. I don't know any songs. That's okay. Yuto encouraged him. You'll do great. Asia nodded. You'll do great, Naruto-san. Don't be deterred. Zenovia nodded proudly. You can do it, Naruto-senpai, Gasper called from his box. We believe in you.
Kaneko just gave him a thumbs up. I really don't think I should be singing up, Jojo. Naruto gave a frightened yell as the music suddenly spiked and the words popped up on screen. They started clapping as he stared at the word, as Sora. Koboryoki de Futatsu no Hishi ga, Hikari to Yami no Manamo Sukomori, Yuku. Issei-kun, are you filming this? Absolutely. Issei hid his snicker and recorded the whole thing with his phone as the girls cheered on their whiskered senior. He didn't sound very remarkable, but he certainly seemed less rigid and more enthusiastic as the song went on. And the others were having a ton of fun as well. They all looked eager to take the mic next. But it was definitely worth putting their grumpy blonde senior on it first. It was things like never getting the chance to hang out and do stuff like this that made Issei believe that his story about coming from a ninja world could hold merit. And with all the other crazy stuff in the world he was discovering, then alternate worlds seemed just crazy enough to be real too.
But it was funnier to poke and prod the older teen, even if that usually meant pain for him and his testicles. Oh well. He was totally keeping this as blackmail material. Devil, okay. Several days since we started Gyasuke's rehabilitation and we're coming along well.
We finally got him out of his room without having to throw or manhandle him. We convinced him to leave his box. And his sacred gear training is coming along smoothly. Issei noted with a smile. With Rias gone to set up preparations for the big meeting and Akino assisting her, it was up to the rest of them to watch over the Dampier's training. With mixed results, although then again it hasn't gone as perfectly as we expected. Had to make some compromises.
Issei-senpai. Look. I have a greater field of vision when I make the holes a little bigger. I'm not gonna keep tripping over rocks and bags now.
Everyone looked over at the odd sight of the young bishop wearing a large brown bag with eye holes over his head. He stumbled forward, his footsteps slow and hands out wide as a buffer between slamming into anything. Gasper giggled gleefully at his clever innovation.
The others watching could only gape at the odd relief the vampire found in wearing the bag. Excellent work, Gia-kun, you've come so far so quickly. Thanks Kaneko-chan, I couldn't have done it without you. To celebrate, I got you a little gift. Can you lift your bag please?
A gift. For me. He hesitantly lifted the bag but spoke with barely contained joy in his voice. Kaneko-chan, I don't know what to. No. Not garlic. I hate garlic.
Come on. Smell it. You won't be able to grow up unless you can do it. Kaneko kept pushing the stinky vegetable in his face despite his protests. Gasper turned around to flee but Kaneko was hot on his trail. Smell it. Yuto watched the rook chase the bishop around with a piece of garlic. Kaneko-chan has always been close to Gasper-kun. I think it's because they're the same age so they can connect better than we could to either. They're really sweet actually. Kaneko-chan, Asia called out, don't chase him too much, Gasper-kun might trip. Sweet? Issei questioned as Gasper cried out in fear. You know I've never thought to ask but is Kaneko-chan possibly sadistic? Better not to ask. Naruto piped up, but if you're still interested, you might want to ask about that one.
Gasper. Eek. Are you trying to run away from our training? Zenobia announced sternly. The blue-haired warrior strode forward with a mighty gait and her durandal at her side. She hefted the blade up and pointed it at the vampire. Do not attempt to escape from me. I shall make a fearsome, respectable warrior out of you, or severely cripple you in the process.
That doesn't inspire confidence though. Zenobia-senpai. I want to grow stronger with your help as well. The vampire trembled on his feet. But can you not look so scary and intimidating while you do it? There are only two ways I'll stop, Gasper. Either you stop me with your sacred gear. She let the tip of Durandal fall and uproot the ground beside her, or I finish the job. So these are the friends you were talking about? Gotta say it feels like you fit with them pretty well.
Shut up. Naruto muttered under his breath while they watched Zenobia chase her target around. Once again he was convinced of just how terrifying the church warrior could be when she put her mind on a single target. He should know that better than anyone. Surprised to see you awake already.
I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't help but fall asleep whenever I get the chance. I feel more drained than usual. That's especially surprising considering you just woke up from a 2-year nap.
It wasn't a nap. I thought I was dead. Yeah, you keep saying that. He muttered under his breath before looking back up to watch the training session go underway. The whiskered man looked to his side to see the odd looks he was getting from the juniors while Zenobia and Kaneko continued to chase Gasper. He crossed his arms. What?
Naruto-san, are you feeling well? Asia asked with clear concern in her voice as she looked up at him. The sweet girl titled her head. You look like you were talking to yourself. His body went still as a drop of sweat ran down his temple. It was quickly replaced with a blush of embarrassment as he realized he had been speaking out loud in his conversations with Kurama.
It was a habit he hadn't quite kicked yet, trying to get accustomed to the voice in his head again that was so clear and present that it felt like someone was really there talking with him. He tried to reel back his shock, not any easier by the fact Kurama's cackling was echoing in his head. I'm fine Asia, totally fine. I'm just talking to the voice in my head.
You mean Kurama-san, right? The demon in your body that recently reappeared? Yuto questioned with a curious tilt of his head. It has to be interesting to have your old companion return to you like this. And you're not certain about how this change came to pass?
No idea. He shook his head. One day it was quiet, the next I realized I had the voice of the grumpiest asshole across multiple Earths grousing in my ear. Said voice growled in annoyance but Naruto ignored it with a smile. I don't know how it happened but honestly I'm happy. He's back, and I'm glad he is. I want to figure out how he came back, and I'm pretty sure I wanna give who did it my thanks.
Kaneko-chan, are you okay? Your face is all red? Are you sick? Not the garlic again? Is Kurama-san listening to us right now? Asia looked up at him with wonder and amazement in her eyes. She beamed a smile up at the taller blonde and almost sparkled with joy. Can we speak with him? He can't exactly do it face to face. Naruto shrugged. I mean he can hear and see you.
Oh, I understand. The earnest bishop stepped back and pinched the helm of her skirt before giving a polite courtesy. It's an honor to meet you Kurama-san. My name is Asuya Argento, and I am a new friend of Naruto-san. Actually, through some circumstances have been designated as his little sister B, but that's not important right now. She nodded her head with a smile. I hope we can get to know each other a little better.
Okay, so Rias wasn't the only oddball that was using him as a telephone.
Yuto stepped forward and politely bowed in a gentlemanly manner to his fellow devil. My name is Yuto Kiba, a knight under the service of Rias Grimori-sama and sworn comrade of Naruto-san. I want you to know that he will be watched over and protected by his friends. So I hope we get to know each other, Kurama-san.
Oh, so it isn't just that redhead you're trying to court that seems to be off their rocker.
Play nice. Asia, Kiba, it's probably for the best that you don't play into his delusions like that. Issei spoke up with a smirk as Naruto snarled in annoyance, talking to the demon sealed inside his body from another dimension. How is that not a classic Chunabu scenario to make fun of?
Naruto frowned. I'd kick your dick back up inside you if I had any idea what this Chuyunibyo shit was. But Issei-san, don't you sometimes talk to the ultimate red dragon that resides in your arm? I hear you talking sometimes.
Don't bring that up, Asia. The perverted pond muttered as he tried to hide his blush and ignore Naruto's chortle. The brunette coughed into his hand before pointing to the side. Hey, can we stop getting distracted for a second? If you guys forgot we're out here for a reason, remember. His point was proven when Zenobia broke a section of the ground and Gasper screamed at the top of his lungs in fright. We really need to focus on getting his sacred gear under check.
Seriously, you kids got any idea how dangerous a time controlling sacred gear can be without proper guidance? On a related note, what's up Naruto? The Gremory peerage froze in surprise and looked over to see their sudden guest walk out from the forest.
Yuto and Zenobia were quick to draw their swords, Kaneko raising her fists in front of a cowering Gasper, and Issei guarding Asia while summoning his gauntlet. The mix-haired fallen angel raised his hands peacefully. Whoa, quick reaction there kiddies. Gotta say I'm impressed to see the new generation isn't taking things lightly. But please don't punch or cut me up, I really like this yukata. Don't fight. Naruto looked between them to motion them to lower their respective weapons. Seriously, we thought that bleached asshole was enough pain, but this guy is like 10 times worse in a fight. Azazel gasped and thanked him for the compliment before Naruto turned his glare on him. What do you want, Azazel?
Geez, do you think everything I do comes with an ulterior motive? Well, I was just surprised. Naruto crossed his arms. All the other leaders are getting prepared for that big meeting and you're out here spying on us? Shouldn't you get to work?
PFF'd. The fallen angel Governor General scoffed. Kid, I pretty much invented the last-minute rush. I'm gonna breeze my way through, reach the night before the meeting, and then bullshit my way through everything to absolute perfection. Settled.
The young devils looked between each other with uncertainty. Issei lowered his arm. You know this is a gathering between leaders you set up to talk about the current state of things, right? Maybe you shouldn't be bullshitting things so carelessly? This is an incredibly important meeting with the fate of a lot of people's lives on the line. I'd rather you not be so cavalier about it. Yuto added as the rest of the peerage muttered and nodded in unanimous agreement. Meh. Azazel just shrugged before his eyes immediately narrowed in on something worthy of attention.
He slowly walked past Naruto and approached the knights. Their swords clicked when their hands tightened, but Azazel just cupped his chin. Hey, this is the holy demonic sword you summoned in your fight with Kokobile, isn't it? Man, this is beyond miraculous craftsmanship. No way in hell this thing could exist if the big guy stomping upstairs was still around. This isn't the balance breaker of sword birth though, so it must be a subspecies balance breaker. Remarkable.
You shouldn't get so close. I may be tempted to move my blade forward and who knows what kind of incident that might cause.
Hey, fair enough. Azazel's eyes turned to Gasper as the little vampire squealed, ducking behind Kaneko, who narrowed her eyes and raised her fists. The fallen angel hummed, forbidden Balur view. An awe-inspiring, peerless sacred gear. Maybe with a little more training you'll be stronger than anyone else here.
Gia-kun, fight or flight time. Freeze him. But Kaneko-chan, I can't. We need you to do it. The little rook quietly pressed and looked back at the boy behind her. Our lives depend on it. I believe in you, Gia-kun.
Kaneko-chan. Try it. Gasper nodded and closed his eyes as Azazel chuckled heartedly. Gasper opened his eyes and stared up at the fallen angel before the older man's laughing stopped and he froze. Everyone looked at the man in shock before Gasper let out a hopeful laugh. I did it. I froze him with my power. I can control.
Psych. Azazel immediately started moving again and Gasper paled in shock. Just kidding. Long way to go, kiddo.
Never mind Gaia-kun, you're useless. How about you, Secure-UT? Azazel turned to Issei as Gasper toppled over into a ball of whimpering sadness and pity. They just seemed to ignore it as Azazel approached the pawn, Asia hiding behind his back as he faced the fallen angel. I hear Valley has been harassing you lately. Sorry about that. He's in his rebellious phase.
Phase? You might want to think about putting the dog on a leash? No, that's another guy. The first no. I'm half convinced he's gonna come to my house one day and kill me where I stand.
Ha ha ha, yeah. Azazel gave a half-hearted nod but didn't argue the point. Issei looked horrified to see the fallen angel make no effort to refute his worries before he shrugged, but I mean you two are destined to fight each other. It was bound to happen sooner or later.
Later? I'd prefer it happen way fucking later than right now.
Don't panic too much. Fated to kill each other in an age-long death match is just one very large part about being one of the twin heavenly dragons. Issei paled but was quickly brought around with Azazel's follow-up. Another great part is the harems. And the ladies. And the sex. And the orgies.
The horror on Issei's face quickly vanished. The what? The harems. And sex. And orgies. He shrugged. It's kind of a big part of having so much power that people are drawn to you. Not many of your predecessors aimed for that part, but I'm guessing you'll be very happy to embrace it. Yes I will. Issei fervently nodded. Will they have big breasts?
Big, small, round, firm, squishy, perky. All the breasts you can imagine and more. All of them will be within your grasp. Gone was the heavy animosity of a young devil facing the dangerous leader of the fallen angels. What remained was a young pupil being swayed by the promises of various memories from his wise and traveled mentor. They'll all be yours as long as you go out and conquest.
I will. Issei's eyes watered as he cheered. I promise I. Ow. Asia. He looked back at the pouting girl with watery eyes as she continued to pinch his arms and sighed. Stop it. That hurts. She is not amused. Zenobia stabbed her sword into the ground before looking at Azazel curiously. But I wouldn't mind hearing more about these conquests and sexual activities you allude to.
No. None for you. Cover your ears. Naruto got between Zenobia and Azazel as quickly as possible. She was already forward with physical interactions and relationships as it was. If she interacted with the walking disease book with wings, then things would only go badly for anyone in her sights, and you seem to be talking about everyone else's gears except the one you should be worried about. Mine. That thing is still intact. Seriously. Naruto scowled and summoned his remote looper to appear on his arm. When he saw that Azazel gawked and clapped in amusement, oh that's awesome. I thought that thing would have broken by now. Most of the others do when they have enough strain put on them.
Naruto looked down at his arm before frowning at Azazel. Now just out of curiosity, and so I know how hard I should hit you just in case, what would happen if it broke? Well, there's a tiny, minuscule, itty-bitty chance that your arm would explode. Or implode. I've seen it both ways. That sucks, but I would be lying if I said that wouldn't be kinda funny to watch. Fuck you. Is there a way to ensure that the sacred gear Naruto-san has doesn't explode? Asia bravely stepped up and inquired of the intimidating fallen angel. I'm not sure how well I can heal an exploded or imploded limb. Well, there are a few ways. Azazel nodded. Constant painful maintenance to make sure it doesn't break. By the way, I never got around to tattooing a giant G on your back to show that you are scientific property of the Grigori Special Technology Division.
Naruto cautiously took a step back, but maybe you can stabilize it with a powerful existence inside it. Unfortunately, I only have a contract with Fafnir and he's in the gear I use. I could maybe make more contracts, but that would be a whole day of other stuff I could do. Plus I'll probably want to keep them for other things just in case. So you know.
What about Kurama-san? Asia helpfully spoke up. Naruto-san recently reconnected with the demon in his body. Could he act as the catalyst to stabilize the sacred gear? Oh Asia, if you weren't so precious he'd call you stupid. I'll say it then. That airhead is a moron. Shut your mouth, she's adorable.
Is that so? Azazel strolled forward to face Naruto with an curious smile. I didn't know you had made contact with your little tenant again. I see you finally found someone to fix your energies and set everything right in that crazy sewer system you call your body.
No, I didn't. Naruto shook his head. Don't know how it fixed itself, but I didn't find anyone to help me. Might just be a miracle.
Right, miracle. Azazel, eyes panned to the side and Kaneko slouched under his gaze. Anyway, can that demon hear me? What's up? I'm Azazel. I recently kidnapped your current living arrangement and kept him locked up in a bedroom for a brief period of time.
I'm not a phone. Stop talking to him through me.
Sacred gears bond with the user's soul, body, and mind. It's part of them on every level. I'm sure wherever you are, it's connected to that part as well. Azazel continued, just look around for anything different. Anything out of place. Anything new, and I'm sure that'll be the sacred gear. Something new. Kurama sounded skeptical in Naruto's mind. This place is completely empty. I'm not sure what this moron thinks his meddling is capable of affecting in this mindscape, but he's a vain fool for believing. Oh wait. Hold on. Well shit, he was right. I see a ball of light.
What? Naruto yelled, he actually found something. Bitching. Azazel smirked, tell him to touch it. I'm not telling him to touch it, I kinda want to touch it. Why do you want to touch it? There's never anything in here. There finally is, and I can't just ignore it. Sounds like he wants to touch it. He is not going to touch it. I'm gonna touch it. God fucking damn it. Issei wore a blank face despite the sudden pain in his head. He turned to the others. Anyone else think this conversation is really weird out of context? Yuto nodded. Kaneko hummed in agreement. Gaspar was still a sniveling mess of sadness. Xenovia and Asia were watching intently to see if the creature inside Naruto touched his thing. Or whatever. Naruto closed his eyes and returned to his mindscape to see Kurama reaching out for a glowing white orb. The fox carefully reached out and touched one claw to it before a blinding light engulfed everything around them. Naruto returned to reality, but only to see a familiar bright light blind him. Except it was bright orange. The light started to die before finally disappearing as they all uncovered their eyes. Naruto looked down and blanked in shock. Huh? That was weird. I thought something interesting would happen. The buttons and lights that were once a faded white from Remote Looper were now orange. And they glowed in tandem with Kurama's speech.
Wait, did something interesting happen? Oh ho ho ho, shit. I didn't think that would actually work. Azazel struggled to catch his breath from laughter before wiping his eyes. Oh damn, I'm good. Okay, well, I have an incredibly important meeting with the fate of a lot of people's lives on the line, so I'm off. Tell me how that works out.
His sentence carried off into the sky as he flew away. What an asshole. Devil, okay. It's almost been a full minute. Just hold out a little longer and… Whoops. Remote Looper popped back up on Naruto's arm as the blonde groaned. Son of a bitch, Kurama, can you get a handle on this please? It's harder than you think. I relaxed just a little. The sacred gear appeared and disappeared rapidly from Naruto's arm before it slumped to his side. He heard a quiet giggle and glared up at the woman, finding amusement in his circumstance. This isn't funny.
You're dealing with your prematurely materializing sacred gear as you argue with the giant fox inside you. This is actually really amusing. Rias laughed and looked up to see the unamused frown on her boyfriend's face. Oh, don't give me that look. It's your own fault for letting that detestable man influence you like that.
It wasn't me, it was the giant fucking fox's fault.
Well, why were you talking with him in the first place? Rias questioned while crossing her arms sternly and unwavering in her stare-off with the whiskered blonde. She sighed and shook her head before pulling herself up closer and cupping his face in her hands. You are okay, right? He didn't do anything to hurt you or the others. The naked concern in her voice made his heart flutter before she frowned again. I swear if he had anything in mind to hurt you all. I know. Naruto pulled her hands off him but kept them in his grasp. Besides some general harassing and maybe working in tandem to shatter Gaspar's psyche with Kaneko, nothing remotely bad happened. Rias' frown started to settle as he gave a small smile. And other than the stupid fox not being able to handle working a sacred gear now, everything was fine.
Go fuck ass until you little shit. Rias looked down and chuckled. Well, you two certainly seem compatible. Wait. Naruto looked down at his gear before looking back at the Gremory heiress. Can you hear him? Seriously?
Yes, although he comes in and out with your sacred gear. Rias giggled at the look on his face. Issei told me something similar with boosted gear. The entity inside it, in this case Kurama, can project his voice so either only you or everyone around can hear him.
Oh, Kurama. Yeah, I'm on it. Hold on, I'm gonna. Don't pop anything. Shut up, okay, redhead girl? You hear me? Yes, I do. And you can just call me Rias. Probably gonna take a while for me to get there. Hee hee, that's fine. So how does it feel to be back with Naruto after all this time? It feels strange having to return to this idiot and the many problems that surround his life. Part of me is glad to be back, but another part fears because I know he's gonna get himself into some shit sooner or later. Naruto looked up to Rias and saw her shake her head to show she didn't hear him that time.
So apparently he still needed to put in some effort to get the hang of talking through a sacred gear. Naruto closed his eyes and delved into his mind to see Kurama holding his paw out to a glowing orange orb. There was a look of pure contempt and vile distaste twisting Kurama's face, an expression he hadn't seen on the fox's face since they had come to work together during the war. He smirked as he walked up to the colossal beast. How are you holding up?
It's baffling, Kurama burst out. I can supply chakra to an entire army of ninja and mold my energy to create blasts of unprecedented destructive capability. But trying to talk through this fucking controller is impossible. You suck and now you're trying to prove you can do it if solely for the fact you want to prove it to yourself. Congratulations Kurama, you're just like the rest of us now. I miss just having to pump chakra into things. This is new. This is different, this is putting in effort. Naruto said with a chuckle, I just realized you've never actually had to work or do anything before. Putting chakra into other people and buffing them up was kinda like breathing air to you. Welcome to the hardworking life, Kurama.
Go to hell. Been there, not that bad. The Biju scowled down at him and focused back on the sacred gear. Naruto continued to laugh and the fox mumbled under his breath before looking down at the blonde. By the way, we need to have a very serious talk right now. You're not allowed to have any sexual stimulation with your little girlfriend or with yourself until we get these issues worked out. What? I have a grasp on your thoughts and feelings, and when you aren't stupidly happy with finally having a girlfriend, you start thinking about the gross stuff you can do together. And I know it's gross because your heart beats faster. No way that's happening while I'm still popping up on your arm. Naruto's cheeks went red, and no self-satisfaction either. I'm in your right arm too, so I'll know.
Fuck that. You weren't this bossy before. Well, now I'm much more conscious of the physical crap you can do together. And I never had a reason to get involved before because I was locked up behind those bars. Plus, what did you get up to back there? Fighting and kissing Sasuke. Once, because someone else pushed me. Do I have to go through everything I've done with Rias to counterbalance that because I'm sure it would? Don't bother, bottom line. No inserting parts into each other and swapping your bodily fluids or DNA while I'm so aware of it. Just say sex. You make it so much creepier going into detail like that. You hum. Naruto's eyes popped open when he heard Rias cough. He was brought out to the adorable sight of her with hot red cheeks and shuffling in place in front of him. He was worried something might have made her uncomfortable before he looked down at the sacred gear on his arm. How much did you hear him say? Most of it. In fact, I think I heard all of it. Oh, hey, I'm not as bad at this as I thought. Did you really kiss your friend Sasuke?
Ria-tan, we came to play. The door slammed open to Serafal, Searzex, Grafia, and Sona. The short mouth cheered when she looked inside. Ah, they were in this one. Sorry about the other door, Ria-tan.
Hello everyone. Rias greeted, pushing her blush down like a seasoned champion as she faced their visitors cordially. What brings you all here? Oh come now, is that any way to greet your older brother? Searzex stepped forward with open arms. Come. Give me a great big hug like the old days. Serafal-sama, a pleasure to see you again. Grafia, thank you for making sure he doesn't go out of control. Sona, you seem to be keeping up. Searzex hunched over sadly and Naruto gave the older devil a sympathetic pat.
I'm well Rias, coping with the fact Oni-sama has been staying with me for her time here. The young Cetri heiress fixed her glass over her eyes. Sometimes I envy the fact you left your old living arrangements to live in a smaller place like this. Less visitors and squatters. Rias sighed, you'd be surprised. Enough of that. I hope we weren't ruining a moment between you and Uzumaki-kun. Sona whispered cheekily, with me being the president of the Stuco, it should be expected that I make sure you two understand there should be no fooling around while on campus and to be respectful while out of school as well, but you look so content and cute that I can't bring myself to rain on your parade.
Why yes, well, Rias fiddled with her hair. We're just trying to keep it subtle and simple for now.
Well, you're failing spectacularly. With walking around, sometimes holding hands, Rias running up to greet him after class, and always giving him a bento while trying to feed it to him, the whole school was in on the secret. It was sickeningly sweet to see her friend so giddy with her boyfriend, emphasized particularly on sickening and sweet.
Naruto-kun. Sirzex wiped his eyes of tears and faced the young blonde with a smile. I'm glad to see you again. I heard you started going out with Rias. I'm expecting you to treat her nicely. Yeah, and remember to stay away from Sotan. Serafal popped up between them, because I'll say it again. Sotan's hot, lithe body is mine and mine alone to conquer. Oni-sama. Stop saying that to everyone you meet. Hey, these are certainly some characters. Might want to hold off about how badly you want to court the redhead's sister into doing illicit sexual activities for the time being. Everyone was staring at the sacred gear on Naruto's arm before looking back up at him. He stared ahead blankly and without emotion. I swear I wasn't trying to talk out loud that time. Well, this was going to be a fucking ordeal. Devil. Naruto, Issei, Yuto, Kaneko, and Gasper all gawked at the sight of the man seated in their club room. Asia and Zenobia were gawking for complete shock, admiration, and joy at his presence.
Welcome everyone. I know this might seem a little surprising, but before you have any ideas, this is not an invasion or a hostage situation. Rias walked around the couches and held Akino's shoulder as the busty queen sat across from their surprise guest. I also know we should be wary of this man just like Azazel, but for the life of me I find him more bearable than that arrogant jerk ever could be.
I can understand that. The refined, beautiful man sitting on the couch while enjoying a cup of Akino's tea had an air to him few of them had ever experienced before.
Long perfect blonde hair reaching down his back in elegant robes and armor. He was a handsome man, and besides his body that almost seemed to be glowing, there was the fact he had a halo floating over his head. He stood up from his seat, showing everyone just how tall he was before bowing his head to them. Greetings everyone, my name is Michael. I am an angel and the current leader of heaven.
Asia, Issei cried out as her legs gave out beneath her as she almost fainted. Zenobia mechanically stepped up to Naruto's side and gripped his shoulder. Naruto, I need you to hold me. I don't think right now is the time for you to try and, whoa, Naruto caught the blue-haired knight as she fell into his side and held her before she could topple over. He helped her stand back up. What's wrong with you? I never thought I would meet Michael-sama in the flesh. Asia struggled to stay conscious and looked up at the glorious archangel. It's amazing. He's so radiant and glowing. Truly the Lord's magnum opus, Zenobia stuttered, something they had never seen from the usually brave and brash swordswoman.
Now, no reason to make a fuss. Michael politely waved his hands in hope of quelling the two former church members of their unstoppable joy. The leader of heaven lowered his hands and smiled warmly. I doubt your king will appreciate the sight of you singing the praise of a foe, even if hopefully that won't be our situation in the near future. It's fine, Michael-sama. Rias responded respectfully to the older man. Considering he was the leader of the angels and she was a pure-blooded devil, they were expecting her to react negatively with her polar opposite. However, it seemed that Rias found the angel likable, or at least bearable enough, to allow in her clubroom. Don't ask of them the impossible. Trying to make my knight and bishop anything other than loyal believers in the church is a waste of time and effort.
The two girls flinched, realizing what they were doing before bowing their heads and delivering their apologies to their king. Rias took it with a smile before pointing behind her. If there's anyone you should be thanking, it's Akano. I live at a shrine and one day Michael-sama contacted me.
He wanted to set up a meeting with us. I was actually quite surprised, but it seemed innocuous enough. Speaking of innocuous, Zenobia and Asia looked at her with innocent, grateful expressions that made them look like children getting their favorite toy for Christmas. Akino's face took on a small blush and she squirmed in her seat. Stop looking at me like that. Those pure, Sweet expressions, it makes me feel so in control, it feels like it would be so easy to corrupt them. Okay. Naruto and Issei quickly swooped in to grab Xenovia and Asia before things could escalate. The whiskered pawn looked over at the angel questioningly. You seem really nice and everything, but why are you here exactly? Right now all you've done is make it hard to stare directly at you and paralyze two of our friends. I suppose I have been rather idle about my purpose here today. The archangel turned to Issei as the brunette flinched under the sudden attention. Michael held out his hands. With the meeting between our three factions coming up soon, there is a very real chance for peace now. So I would like to extend an offering to you in hopes that we can put our differences aside and come together. A bright light blinded all the people in the room as a magnificent object was summoned into the angel's hand. Once the light faded, the devils were greeted with the awesome sight of the blade floating over his palms. A long European sword with a sturdy guard and golden hilt. The devils marveled at the sight of it, but Issei unconsciously flinched when he sensed the danger from it. What is that? This is Ascalon, the holy sword wielded by a saint of old to slay and fall dragons. A single cut could tear through their scales. A weapon built to combat the strongest creatures in existence. Michael spoke before holding his hands out to Issei. I wish for you to have it.
Me? That's right. So you know we won't ever think of using this to hurt you in the future. I wish for you to take it and use it for good. But why me? Issei asked. I mean that Valley Jerk is on the fallen angel side. It probably would have meant the same thing if you gave it to him. Yes, we considered that. However, on further inspection we realized that you had a stronger heart and sense of good, so you would be able to use this blade for the right reasons. So of course there was little doubt after that. You're giving it to me because I'm weaker, aren't you? I didn't want to sound rude, but yes. Issei's head hung low and Asia comforted him with a pat on the head.
His head was then hugged closely into Ria's breasts as the redhead encouraged her depressed pawn. Now Issei, I know it might sound unfair, but you have only had your sacred gear for a few months. Valley has had access to his for years, so of course there would be a difference in skill and experience. If he tried to attack you, you'll need as many advantages as you can have. So I would accept the gift while you can. Issei was released from her grasp and looked up at the magnificent sword. He gulped and reached out for the blade with a shaky hand. The others watched with anticipation as their pawn almost grabbed the sword before pulling his hand back. They all looked at him in confusion before Issei looked up at the archangel. Thank you for your consideration and your gift, Michael-sama, but there is someone more important than Ascalon that you can offer.
Oh, yeah. Issei looked down guiltily before turning around to face his peerage. There are a few people here who were hurt greatly by the church and its faculties. I'm sorry, but if you want to bridge peace, then you have to at least apologize to them. Issei-kun. Issei-san. Issei. They were all horrified by what the pawn suddenly said to one of the strongest leaders of the world. Rias reprimanded her servant. You can't say something like that. But I think he's right, Naruto said from beside him. The whiskered man looked up at the angel. I understand it must be hard being a leader in charge and looked up to by so many people. It's a lot of people, right? There was a unanimous nod to answer his question. Okay, so you can't be everywhere to help everyone.
I get that. But letting Asia get kicked out of the church because she helped someone outside your faction. Xenovia being excommunicated just because she knew the secret about God. All the shit Kiba had to go through. Naruto shook his head. I understand you probably didn't have anything direct to do with these things, but they still happened. Letting people be treated like this and not doing anything about it isn't leadership, it's negligence. Naruto. Rias stepped up to his side and slapped his arm. The blonde didn't back down from her tone even as she turned and bowed apologetically to Michael. I'm sorry about this. They still have a ways to go learning proper etiquette and manners. Naruto-kun. Michael repeated and looked at the blonde with a curious smile. Azazel and Searsex mentioned about an odd fellow from another world. Quite strange to be chewed out by someone from a different Earth. He looked back to Issei and saw the nervous look on the brunette's face. The radiant angel nodded before stepping past them to face other members of the peerage. I had to take over the position of leader after my father died in the war. I've done the very best I could, and had help from many people I'm sure I would have failed without, but even so I've always known I couldn't properly fill the spot he left behind.
The perpetually sad eyes of the angel leader were joined with a sad smile as he continued, I've never been able to hear every prayer. I couldn't help every person that asked for me to help them in their time of need. And because of my inability to act in every situation, many of our followers had to start acting on their own. I am blessed to be followed by some of the most loyal followers in the world, but some of them interpret how they must act as being in the best interest of the church and heaven. He turned to Asia, from thinking that helping another group outside of the church is tantamount to betraying us.
He looked to Zenobia, to being excommunicated simply by being privy to a secret you learned while faithfully carrying out a task. Finally turning to Yuto, to even believing that making sacrifices and allowing tragedies to occur in the name of the church would be for the betterment of it. Many of these matters I'm only aware of after the fact, and never do I feel like I've failed my job more than when I found out there were innocents harmed by my negligence.
The devils looked at one of the most powerful men in existence with sympathy.
To be burdened with so many lives and unable to help them all. They could see just from his expression and his tone of voice that he was a good man placed in an unfavorable, unbearable situation. But he would dare not leave it because it was a duty he had taken up, both for his fallen leader and father, and for the people that still believed in him to help them every day. Naruto and Issei looked at the angel sadly as Zenobia, Asia, and Yuto stared up at him after his speech. Yuto Kiba-kun. The angel bowed his head to the blonde knight, you should never have had to experience such evil and tragedy from our priests and leaders. I know there is no apology I could give to appease your anger, but I can promise that I won't let anything like that happen again, and I'll make sure that the pieces of Excalibur are used for the betterment of mankind. The legacy of your fallen friends will never be forgotten. Yuto tried to remain composed and simply nod at the promise, but his eyes unconsciously started to water. To hear his friends wouldn't truly be forgotten or abandoned made him feel warm. Feel better about the tragedy he had attempted to overcome. He felt something tight and looked down to see Kaneko and Gasper holding his hands. He smiled sadly and squeezed back in return.
Asia Argento, it is not a sin to help people even outside of our faction. I wish I could have said this to you all those years ago.
Michael apologized, your heart is pure, and its love for all of God's creatures shines through each time that glow emanates from your hands. Your kindness, selflessness, and care for others is on a level comparable to that of a saint. I know you may have mixed feeling hearing about this from the man that lead the people that called you a witch, but you are a child of God. And you best exemplify the love he felt for others every day you help them.
Asia's eyes spilled with tears and she gasped before sobbing. Even though she cried, she didn't sound sad or melancholy. She wept with joy, and a relief as a weight that she had carried on her shoulders was lifted off with the angel's kind words. And Zenobia. He turned to the final person wronged by his faction's mistakes as he lowered his head. I am sorry, but I did have a say in your excommunication. The secret about my father, about God's death during the war, was only to be known by members of the Seraph and the highest-ranking members of the church. Even for someone as trustworthy and loyal as you, if the secret had a risk of being leaked, then the system of prayers and answers that I still keep up from God could be badly affected.
The result would lead to chaos. So we acted as quickly as we could. But that wasn't fair to you. You deserved so much better than that. You were a loyal follower, a devout believer, and one of the finest warriors that have ever graced our halls. And I'm sorry we couldn't trust you as much as you trusted us.
Zenobia stared silently at the bowing angel before looking around at the others.
She seemed stunned by the fact she had received an apology from the head of her former religion, and a sincere plea of forgiveness from the mighty archangel. The blue-haired warrior took a shaky breath, keeping any water from falling from her eyes as she summoned Durandal to her hands. She held out the handle to Michael and bowed her head. Michael-sama, I never returned this to you before I left. I believe you should take it back.
No, Michael immediately denied to her surprise. That blade chose you, and it still believes you are the most trustworthy to wield it. Besides, I'm sure you are destined for great things with it in your hands. If you can do something with it for the benefit of others, then it belongs in your care.
A tear finally broke through her restraint and ran down her cheek. Even so, Zenobia smiled and nodded. Michael-sama, I don't blame you for excommunicating me. I knew your reasons had to be for the good of others. And I wasn't abandoned. Never truly. I found somewhere else to go. Somewhere else I can be taken in. I did as well. Asia wiped her puffy red eyes and smiled. Michael-sama, I know I may now be on the side of devils, but I won't forget the teaching the church gave to me. Love, understanding, faith in others. I will carry them with me for the rest of my days. Michael smiled fondly. I still regret what happened to you both, but I am glad you found a new home you love so much. The two girls nodded and smiled at the archangel. The golden-haired man stepped back up to Issei and summoned Ascalon again. He handed it to the pawn, and smiled. My apologies to them should never have been requisite for coming to peace. It was a matter I should have always come around to face. I still want you to have this blade, Issei-kun, and I want to thank you for speaking up to me about your friend's well-being.
Thank you, Michael-sama. And I'm sorry for being so brash with you. I'm sorry too. Naruto apologized. I didn't know this was weighing on you so heavily. Don't apologize. I'm glad you said it. If we want this era of peace to come to fruition, we need to face the mistakes we made and make up for them.
Michael smiled and looked between the peerage. You may very well be able to help fix those mistakes in the future. So please help us set things right in the future. They agreed and the archangel gave a small nod before his 12 golden wings extended from his back. The angel disappeared in a flash of light and left the devils alone in their clubroom.
Ow! Naruto flinched when a hard slap slammed into his shoulder as he cradled it in response. He looked back to see Ria's frown with a magic circle over her hand. What did I do? How about talking back to the leader of the church like that? What were you thinking? You could have risked the meeting talking like that. He seemed cool with it. I know, but... Ria sighed, slapping Issei on the arm as well before shaking her head. If this turned out badly, I never would have heard the end of it from Oni-sama and Grafia. Right, my bad. The word sorta just came to my head and I started talking. Always has been a problem with you. Remote looper appeared on Naruto's arm as Kurama spoke. I think half the trouble you've been in over your life could have been avoided if you just shut the fuck up. Rias crossed her arms and chuckled. I refuse to believe it's only half. 80% should be the bare minimum for him. Akinos casually stated with a little smirk at Naruto's scowl, 90% on a bad day.
Oh, now this is a surprise. Eyes turned to the other heavy growling voice that filled the room. Issei's boosted gear appeared on his arm and the green jewel within the red gauntlet lit up with every word. I wasn't expecting you to actually be able to speak through the sacred gear properly. I'm impressed. Oh ho, looks like I'm not the only one doomed to be sealed in one of these stupid gadgets. And who might you be? I am Diedrich, the Welsh dragon, the Red Death, and more commonly referred to as the Red Dragon Emperor, you. Kurama, the nine-tailed fox. The beast that raises tsunamis and topples mountains with a swing of a single tail. Try to measure up. Well, you certainly seem confident, and with good reason. So, I guess since you're the only other being chained to these silly devices and these simple mortals, we should converse a little. Tell me, how did you end up on that worthless human's arm? Oh, I raised the land to ash and forced all three sides to stop fighting in order to deal with me. They cut my body into pieces and bonded my soul to this gear for all eternity. What about your physical form? Fuck if I know. Probably blew up with everyone else in that giant explosion. This is amazing. Rias muttered under her breath in an attempt to not interrupt the unprecedented conversation going on in the orc room. Zenobia, Asia, and Gaspar also watched in stunned silence as the two beasts dwelling in the sacred gears spoke together. We may be the very first people in history to listen to a conversation between a heavenly dragon and a demon from an alternate reality. Trying to talk through this thing sucks. Any advice? Years of practice. That may be true. Akeno shook her head with a giggle, but unfortunately it isn't as riveting a conversation as we may hope. Yuto nodded, quite mundane listening to these two ancient beings talk actually. Lackluster, Kaneko agreed. If you can recognize us as ancient, then you better show your respect, maggots. Naruto scoffed. Stop trying to show off. Shut up, I'm trying to talk. Kurama whispered out even though the voice carried across the whole room. In my 1,000 years of life I have faced down countless formidable soldiers and ninja. I have weathered infinite techniques and walked out without so much as a scratch. Wait. Diedrich interrupted curiously. Did you say 1,000 years? You've been alive for 1,000 years? Ha ha ha, that's right. What, has the sheer length of my existence terrified you? Ah ha 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 ha. The room went silent after the sudden explosive cackle coming out of Issei's arm. The brunette stared down at it in surprise and looked around the room before speaking,
PFFFFTGEHAHAHAHAHAHAHA. What? What do you find so amusing? You are merely a babe. What? Only 8,000 years and already trying to boast? Adorable. You dare mock me, you overgrown, fire-spitting lizard. I'm sorry, lad. Did I hurt your feelings? I tower over villages and scale mountains? Very impressive. The ground quakes when I release my breath. I'll put that right up there on the fridge. Shut up, Naruto. Help me with this. Wow, Kurama, are you being bullied? Naruto poorly attempted to stifle his laughter as the fox growled. Want me to talk to his parents? Stop patronizing me and help, you bastard. I can't exactly stop a disembodied voice, Kurama. Naruto stood silently before shrugging and cracking his knuckles. I can beat up his host a little if it makes you feel better. Don't you dare, senpai. Issei panicked and waved his hands wildly. Deidrig, shut the fuck up. I'm sorry, I don't usually get to have fun like this. Oh, I take it back. Akinos giggled as Naruto chased Issei and Deidrig laughed at Kurama. The rest of the peerage watched the odd scene in shock. This just got much more interesting. Omake. For better or worse, Yuma-chan, can I get another hamburger steak please? On the way. Yuma-chan. Refill. Got it. Hey, Yuma-chan. Yes. Nothing. I just wanted to see that lovely face again. I can die happy now.
Geez, you're awful. The lovely black-haired girl giggled as the old man's wife slapped him across the head for his lingering eyes. The young woman then felt a pull on her skirt and thought someone was trying to cop a feel, but looked down to see a little girl with a red face. She fixed her skirt and bent down to face her. Yes.
Amano-san? The little girl held out a drawing of a smiling stick figure with black hair. She waited until Yuma took it before muttering. Why, you are the prettiest lady I have ever seen. And I hope I get to be as pretty as you one day.
Thank you. Yuma kissed the girl on the cheek and she squealed before running off to join her friends. A group of boys and girls were looking around the corner and greet the girl when she came back. Yuma giggled and pocketed the piece of paper before seeing another group take their seat at a table. Hello, my name is Yuma Amano and I'll be serving you today. How have you been, and is there anything you'd like?
Oh, we've been a little swamped, but nothing too bad. As for our order, we would like 3 coffees and a milk for the little one. Milk? I want coffee. Don't argue, middled. You'll never grow up if you don't drink your milk.
Hee, okay. I'll be right back. She paused and looked between them before tilting her head in confusion. I'm sorry, but I feel like we've met before. Have we? No, I'm sorry. I'll go grab your order. The group of patrons watched Yuma walk back to the cafe with their order. On the way they watched her happily greet her customers and smile while she did. Azazel-sama, why have you brought us here? I wanted you to see her. Azazel said between the 3 fellow fallen angels as they lowered their gazes. He looked back up and saw the exuberance and kindness emanating from her smile. A kind and pure smile that he had never seen the woman show while under his guidance. The older man sipped from his cup and let the warm taste of the brew seep down. I wanted you all to know that she was okay.
But she isn't herself. Donasek growled with clenched fists. Her wings were destroyed. Her mind was broken. We aren't looking at our friend anymore. It's just an empty shell of what she once was. An empty shell no longer burdened by the deaths she has witnessed or even the ones she has caused. Azazel smiled fondly, a girl that can finally live her life away from constant conflict and do whatever she wants now. I didn't want it to happen like this, but that doesn't mean it was a bad thing. We were just trying to do what we could to help you. Azazel looked solemnly down at his coffee before scoffing. I know. And that's one of the reasons we have to make this treaty work. Devil.